Hello and welcome to episode 2 of Guns and Literature, a brand new series that combines French philosophy and bullets, because we all needed that, apparently. So anyway, last episode was my first episode, as you may have noticed by the number 2 on the top of this page, or video, wherever it is, and I was sort of rushed. 3.5 minutes, as it turns out, not a lot of time to be doing things in. Really, yeah, got through a lot of that. But anyway, two things I forgot to mention last video. First, I don't specifically plan to be swearing at any point, but I might do that. This is possible. And it might be in English, so hide your children. And second is that I chose Modern Warfare because actually the story structure is kind of convenient to use as an example for some things, so I will be spoiling the living hell out of it. I should have sweared there, that would have made sense. Anyway, so if you, for whatever reason, haven't tried this game before, I mean, it's not great, it's alright, but anyway, if you don't want to hear any spoilers about the time that Soap accidentally killed Price by flambeing him in a pie factory, then, you know, go away. Get out of here. For the rest of us, the first theory that we'll be going into is liberal humanism. Theory that isn't really a theory. It's basically English class. You've been doing it the whole time, so you should know what it is. Well, no, you don't. That's why I'm here. Anyway, so, yeah. It's basically sort of the first study of literature. It's what came before anything else. Literature actually is really young study. They didn't even start offering majors until like the 1820s, and it took a while for it to get separated from linguistics and history and philosophy, but once it did, they sort of had this idea that there was like something intrinsic about language that gave it meaning, firstly, and that there was also this idea that there's these human qualities which appear in literature, and if you look through them all, they're all in there. Over again. I mean, with liberal humanism, it's a bit hard to say what exactly is the theory, because it's not really a theory in the same way as the other ones are. It's, if you ask most liberal humanists, they probably won't know that they're liberal humanists. It's sort of a label that only makes sense to theorists, I suppose. Actually, I don't know that. I don't really know the etymology, but it's not important. But anyway, but there were a bunch of philosophers whose names aren't really important to you, who did sort of work out the whole ideas here. I suppose there's the major idea here is this sort of relationship between the author, the critic, and the readers. The idea is the author gets the idea. He goes out and he says, I want to write a story about how all bartenders are untrustworthy. And he goes out there and he writes this story, and then the reader reads it and he says, well, I don't know what the hell, condors have to do with untrustworthy bartenders, but, I suppose that's cool. But then the critic comes, and their job is to look through things and say, oh, the condors represent that vodka and gin you had. And then they find the meaning, the idea being that the author has a single meaning, which they put in, and the critic, because he's learned things, it's usually, we'll talk about that later, because the critic has learned things, he has the ability to figure everything out, and then he goes and tells the reader this, and then the reader says, oh, of course that makes sense. Thank you, critic. We could not have got by without you. And of course, you've probably noticed already that the whole ideas of it are sort of self-serving for critics, which might be accidental or not. I really don't know. These things just sort of happen. But anyway, so that's the idea. And so, of course, I'm talking about a lot of critics, but one of the big points here is that there is sort of this general idea. There is one human nature, which is something you might have heard about a lot. I mean, you might hear people say that we can never get rid of war because there's just something about humans that we're just violent. That's just the way we are. And we can't get out of that. And that's sort of what liberal humanism works with. That these innate human values. Another part of liberal humanism, which sort of works off of this a little bit, is that because there are innate values in this text, these are the important bits, and all the other ideas about whatever sort of different historical events, like some Shakespeare was making fun of or whatever, aren't important. That you should read a text knowing nothing about the author and nothing about the time period that it comes from, and if you do that, then you should just see the values that come out here in the text, and then that will be all that matters to you. And there's this idea that's developed that sort of any theory or any ideas just get between the critic and the text. So yeah, you can sort of take that as well. Because I'm going to lit theory, I'm going to take that all as like a crock of shit. It's a crock of shit. I just swear. Swore. Good God. Yeah. So that's a central idea of it. I mean, there are other parts, I guess, a little. This thing varies a lot in liberal humanism. But the liberal humanist phrase, you may recognize those words, and they both make sense. There's both, in terms of liberalism, there's this idea that literature should, in general, be bringing good to the world, that there's like good values which we are spreading through our literature. We're appealing to people because we're all the same, so we can all understand the same things, and we can spread the values in literature. That's the thing. And yeah, that makes sense. Liberal humanism, I suppose, if that makes sense to you. But yeah, so that's sort of always been theory of working around. So that's what you always work with. Basically, in your classrooms, your teacher was doing the job of critic, and he or she, wow, I am just gender roles all over the place now, aren't I? This person is telling you what it means, and that's the only possible meaning. And that's what we're going to work away from here, slowly, over time. You will see. It will make sense what I'm saying later, hopefully. I don't know. Next time on our wonderful little show, I'll get talking a little more about why this sort of idea, these ideas have fallen out of favor. And that'll make sense to you. And maybe one day I'll actually sound coherent. I don't know. It's possible. Have a nice day.